dish twice, but if even one meal displeases me, you'll die that day. Yeonji accepts the challenge, though shining, and suddenly, everything around her goes dark. The moon and the sun merge in the sky, and Ji-young begins to float. She's no longer in the modern world. At the same time, King Yi-hyun is hunting in the same forest. Angry and restless, he had a ritual happening that day. His grandmother believes hunting during the ritual, especially during a solar eclipse, is a bad omen that could bring disaster to the king. But he doesn't care. But he doesn't believe her. When he draws his bow again, she pulls out a small taser to defend. Spirals out of control. The king's arrow hits her bag, and she falls off a nearby cliff. Hurt but alive, she angrily yells at him, threatening to call the police, a word that, of course, for the king, finding only Ji-young's bag left, wakes up beside the unconscious king. Despite the forest, as she looks for a way home. Back at the palace, we meet King Mok-ju, the king's junior consort. She's anxious about the king's disappearance, especially since the other courtiers are beginning to blame her for his unstable behavior. Meanwhile, in the forest, Ji-young and Yi-haeon continue to bicker as they wander. Once home to villagers displaced by the king's hunting expansion. Ji-young doesn't realize yet that this very king is the same tyrant she once read about, known for his cruel, brings back a flood of memories from his childhood, especially of his mother, and for the first time, tears fill his eyes. Later, Ji-young and the girl, Gilgyum, head to the cliff where Ji-young dropped her bag. Along the way, here, Gilgyum finally tells her the truth. She's in the Joseon dynasty, hundreds of years in the past. Just as Ji-young begins to process this shocking reality, the king's soldiers appear. Ji-young and Gilgyum, everything that's happened, but their peace doesn't last long. Chae-hong guards suddenly appear and capture them, taking them straight to Governor Hong's residence. It's here that Ji-young finally comes to terms with the truth. She's somehow traveled back in time. When the Chae-hong inspectors arrive, the women are divided into two groups. Ji-young and Gilgyum end up in the group that won't be sent to the king, but instead, they're ordered to prepare a meal for important guests. The kitchen is a mess, barely any ingredients, and all the maids have fled. But Ji-young, determined as ever, strikes a deal with Hong Yeon-uk, the governor's son. If she can impress their guests with her cooking, he promises to let all the women go free. He agrees, warning her that the guests, Im Seo-hong, and his son, Song-jae, are impossible to please. Using her modern-day cooking knowledge, Ji-young decides to make steak and even recreates a sous vide technique to tenderize the meat. Meanwhile, Yi-hyun finds her scrunchie by the river and realizes she was taken away with the Chae-hong. When the guests arrive, Song-jae is immediately arrogant and dismissive. Dinner is served, but they complain that the meal is meager. As tensions rise, Song-jae reveals that he's captured Hong Yeon-uk's daughter, Mi-hyang, while she tried to escape. The governor is furious but helpless. Ji-young steps up, telling them to at least taste the food. If it's bad, they can punish her, but if it's good, they must release everyone. The guests eat, clearly impressed, yet Song-jae lies and calls it tasteless. Ji-young is dragged away to be punished, but just as the situation turns dire, a commanding voice interrupts. It's King Yi-haeon. He demands to try the dish himself and is stunned by its unique flavor. He questions her identity, and she boldly admits she's from the future. Yi-hyun doesn't believe her, but is clearly intrigued. He orders that she and Mi-hyang be taken to the palace. As Ji-young and Gilgyum are led to the palace in chains, Ji-young wonders if her presence has already changed the course of history. When they finally arrive, Mok-ju greets the king and slyly comments on Ji-young's beauty and talent. The king looks at Ji-young coldly, orders his guards to take her to a special place. But when she arrives, she quickly realizes it's nothing more than a prison hidden inside the palace walls. Meanwhile, consort Kang Mok-ju watches as the royal doctor removes the arrowhead from the king's shoulder. While the doctor is distracted, she secretly takes the arrowhead and later sends it to Prince Jason. During the treatment, Yi Heon learns that Ji Young was the one who saved his life by stopping his bleeding. Over in the royal kitchen, we meet Chef Eom and Chef Ma Ing, two veteran cooks competing for the position of chief royal cook after the previous one's death. Elsewhere, Dowager Queen Inju begins to wonder if her grandson, Yi Heon, is taking revenge for his mother's fate. That night, a masked man appears at Ji Young's cell and secretly frees her and Gilgium. But instead of finding freedom, they're led into an eerie courtyard where masked men are singing and dancing. The surprise? One of the masked performers is none other than King Yi Heon himself. He orchestrated the entire event to test Ji Young. He introduces the girls to Gongil, a jester who pretends to lead them away to safety. Before leaving, Gongil receives a secret message from the king. He's tasked with uncovering who tried to assassinate Yi Heon in the forest. When Ji Young refuses to obey the king, Yi Heon threatens to brand Gilgium with hot iron. Desperate, Ji Young agrees to stay in the palace and not attempt escape. Yi Heon smirks and demands she cook him a meal immediately. Chief eunuch Chang Seon escorts the girls to the royal kitchen, where the male cooks are shocked and furious that a woman will be cooking for the king. They storm out in protest. Left with few resources, Ji Young decides to prepare deer steak using the meat from Yi Heon's recent hunt. Her modern techniques impress, and she presents a full French-inspired meal. 3 elegant courses. As Yi Heon tastes her dishes, old memories surface of meals shared with his late mother. It's a rare human moment for the usually cold king. When Consort Kang tries to enter his chambers, Yi Heon denies her, something he's never done before. He then leans close to Ji Young and tells her, "I've chosen you." Afterwards, Songjae approaches Ji Young, offering her a deal: share what she learns during her private meals with the king, and in return, he'll protect her from Consort Kang. Ji Young agrees, but with one condition: he must find her bag, the one Yi Heon threw off the cliff. Meanwhile, Consort Kang begins plotting again. She orders cook Maeng to make Ji Young's life miserable. Snakes, cockroaches, and all kinds of tricks are used to bully her and Gilgium, leaving them exhausted. Consort Kang, undeterred, visits the Dowager Queen and warns that Ji Young poses a danger to Yi Heon. The queen decides to test herself. Ji Young is summoned and ordered to compete against the senior royal chefs. If she fails, she'll lose an arm. When Yi Heon hears about the test, he realizes what's happening. He arrives at the competition and demands fairness. If Ji Young risks her arm, so should the others. The king sits and deep in thought says to himself, if she really came from the future, then she'll have to prove it today. At the same time, the Dowager Queen's health is quickly declining. Before the day's cooking competition begins, she writes down a single word, an old traditional term, that will be the theme for today's dishes. The cooks must prepare something. She remembers a pasta dish her father once cooked for her using similar ingredients. Inspired, meanwhile, the 2 senior chefs rush into the girl. Yi Heon calmly replies, "Because I want to understand her." He even tells his grandmother that steps forward, Ost came to the palace as a child, was separated from her family. The last thing her mother ever cooked. Moved by this story, Ji Young decides to make that same soup. Meanwhile, the 2 rival chefs, once like brothers, start turning warning coldly, "If you do." Then, Ji Young presents her humble soup. The Dowager Queen hesitates. Tears fill her eyes as memories of Yan Ji Young, he demands. Mokju insists she only acts for his sake, that he's Young's eyes fall. "She died when I was little," she says. And in that quiet,